The Beyond of Life Art, presented by me, Jon Keppel. Hello and welcome to this third session of life art lectures that have been coming through me over the past year or so. A lot has been happening while all of these are unfolding through me as me. If you have not seen the first two lectures, it is not imperative that you see them first, though it may help you. I say if you feel called to this one, go ahead and listen to it and watch it and see how you feel after it is done. If you then feel called to see the other two lectures, by all means try them out. The first one is called Art as Life and Its Influences, a proposition for life art. The second one is called Practicing Life Art, some good things to keep in mind as you discover your own unique way. This lecture I perceive is about what lies on the other side of a potential life art journey, not in regards an afterlife to incarnate being, but rather thinking about what the nature of the life art modality is as a way of being, a healing practice, as a mindset, as a way of coaching oneself and folding positively into the nature of oneself to fuel, alight, and delight one's nature of being. What I mean to say is that life art could be seen as a kind of boat, bridge, or ladder, where it is a kind of chrysalis that is an in-between stage, existentially speaking, that takes people from one phase or registration of their life to a completely other, transformed state of being. The thing about it is, I want to be clear that it is not completely clear to me what the ultimate status is of this thing called life art that I feel like it is revealing itself to me as my life through my life. This lecture will be unpacking this dynamic to try and get at a sense of what life art is as seen from an imagined objective place, in being, in mind, existentially. The question here is life art that like the chrysalis that the butterfly goes through, or is life art actually all of the stages of the butterfly's maturation? And even that which is before its form as an egg and after its body dissipates? This to me is a very interesting question and one that has arisen from the work. In regards to the boat, bridge, and ladder analogy, it seems very much that one uses a boat to get from one bank to another and then departs from the boat to walk upon the bank they were intending to get to, when we're talking in spiritual terms. Similarly, one very rarely makes a destination of a bridge or ladder. Such instances are passageways or gateways to something else. I think you can get a sense of what I am speaking of here, and I really do not have a definitive answer. I really feel as though there is a magical quality to this and that somehow it could be either a transitional occurrence or an ongoing, perhaps even permanent way of being. But it doesn't have to be one or the other, and quite plainly stated, life art itself does not have to be at all if it is not assisting people in a healthy way to live the life they truly want to live. It is just an option, a modality of consciousness that has shown itself to me in my life as my life and has helped me immensely. It is fair to say that in one sense, I have been a life artist my whole life and have been living my life as art in more or less unconscious ways prior to having the revelation about 5 years ago that I could see everything as art, and thus channel the ongoing creative muse that naturally occurred as my experience into not only paintings and sculptures, but rather into the everyday lived actions of life, thereby making an art of life itself. I get the sense of a fractal here, where the part resembles the whole, and in a never-ending multi-dimensional contraction and expansion that stems inwards and outwards from the embodied consciousness we call human being, standing as a nexus point, the center of the infinity symbol, reaping the benefits of omni-understanding, where tapping into the furthest without is actually a way of spontaneously generating liveliness and sparks of wonder at the very deepest recesses of our being, that innate bottomless well sometimes known as the unmanifested realm. As Jon Kabat Zinn has said, wherever you go, there you are. A statement that speaks of how we are all in perpetual motion in space-time, in the everyday 3D Newtonian expanse of life. We move around in and do things in and live our lives in, and yet we do not apparently leave our bodies. We move and yet we do not move. In one sense, you could see this as a riddle. But from another sense, the one I prefer, you can see it as a miracle. A miracle of possibility and potential that because of this inherent parallax that arises from the gentle friction of the universal and the particular, and this dynamic of always moving in contrast to never moving, creates a kind of beautiful dance that in the end is very much a kind of revelation, a becoming aware of, and delighting in a quality of existence, perhaps even a defining quality of existence, which transcends our everyday lives and yet is entered into through the quotidian juxtapositions of subtly delayed consciousness that we call phenomena in the abstract, and just simply life when it is wrapped up in a subjectivized bridge of incidents, an impression of meaning, which is the result of coagulated vitality. This is where the term life art begins to shine and illuminate, not only as a wonder of beauty itself, but also as a mechanism for showing us other aspects of our expanded self, or self with a capital S. The One with a capital O, as it were. That infinite, eternal now, or what Einstein called the mind of God, sometimes captured in the reference to the quantum field of pure potential, of which science has arrived at and begun to formulate through the mind of trained scientists, quantum physicians, and the like, standing as the very thing in which they are studying. The mind, after all, is a quantum phenomenon, just like anything else. There is some relationship of some nature, even if it is an absence of relation, that constitutes how human psychology can be considered as an emergent property of quantum potential, or as perhaps something that is even beyond the quantum that we do not know of yet, beyond even the superstrings, if those turn out to be actual. In the past, we have always thought, well, now this is it. This is the smallest it can go, or the largest it can be, and so forth. But that nexus point between the mind that beholds such perspectives as thought, as that which is localized in the cranium, contrasts with the sense of the mind of God, as it were, of which we are presumably a part. Not God as an anthropomorphized male-like deity with a beard on a cloud, but more similar to Spinoza's God that estimated the term through other terms like nature or spirit. It is an isness that many have spoken of, but it speaks most pointedly in the context of this particular lecture as showcasing how in a fractalized sense, where the part is in the whole and the whole is in the part, our craniums would be an aspect of a much larger mind, so to speak, that we could tap into and call upon just like any other sort of extended system of reference. It is like the reverse of how a single seed emanates a fully grown tree and then spawns countless acorns that create potentially infinite other trees and forests ad infinitum. You see, in a way, the infinite potential from which said seed came is harnessing all of that potentiality again as a nexus point between an infinite within and without. This leads us back to how life art could be both the center point at the infinity symbol, which is a passageway from within to without, while still maintaining the omni-shape we know as that symbol which I think we could liken analogically to the term and reality of intelligibility. Life art then is that nexus point, but also the whole shape, as it were, where that gives rise to a concept and experience of what we might call a world. From this vantage point, the notions that I began with, like a boat or bridge or ladder, or even the many stages of a butterfly's life, including egg, larva, chrysalis, and fully formed butterfly, may fall away and not do justice to the reality of this term and why it is so compelling when put into practice. I will mention again how this practice helped me personally recover and then go on to thrive after experiencing a completely debilitating clinically diagnosed depression with a capital D and mental illness that made it so I was dysfunctional and out of sorts in all ways that contribute holistically to a cognizant, healthy, functional human being, which, as we all would hope, is the supportive context or environment for what we might simply refer to as a happy person. I feel very much compelled to tell more about my story of having gone from losing my ability to subjectively relate meaningfully to what we might call the objective expanse of the world in a way where dignity and sovereignty are imminently being expressed. Even now as I write, and I am sure as I recite this for this presentation, I feel as though a higher state of consciousness is being accessed, and that if asked in this very state of writing these words and delivering them where these notions are coming from, I would have to answer there is something bigger than me at work, because I am not in a kind of everyday state of mind as I would be when talking with someone about the weather or how their day is going. It is a completely different kind of registration where I am able to access non-conceptual states of consciousness in service to relating what this thing, not a thing, life art, has been in my life. It feels good and right to allow for this higher state of consciousness to work through me in order to get at something which is beyond my own life situation, and is from the fount of being itself, the collective sphere or expanse of wisdom, or what can most closely be approximated as wisdom, though I get the sense that in the schematic of data to information to knowledge to wisdom, there may be another level that we have just not been ready for yet as a species, that through content like what Gary Zukav is sharing about multi-sensory human beings in his recent book Universal Human, we may have access to higher and higher states of not only consciousness, but being itself, in order to draw upon in the service of actualizing our individual and collective potential. There is so much more to say on this, and I'm getting the sense that this type of inquiry starts to go toward an infinity in its consideration. It is not uncomfortable nor disorienting, though I perceive it as being a kind of infinite, perpetual, ether-emerging production of being, that because being is not a material construct, could go on forever. It is actually quite heartening, now that I am doing it from the vantage point of having gone through the life art process and all of the many other modalities, teachings, conversations, healings, and so forth that have folded into the luxurious and privileged mind state that has arisen, similar to the wonder that can make it so that a breakdown is actually a breakthrough. I feel like this presentation is a breakthrough in its own right and hints at a glorious infinity that we really need not be afraid of, but rather delight in and enjoy.